Hey everyone, welcome to the CSI Secret Store community call. Today is the Feb 3rd, 2022. This call will be recorded and published to YouTube and follows the CNCF code of conduct. If you have not added to the attendee list, please add to the attendee list. And then I will moderate the meeting. Anyone wants to help take notes?
I can do Oh, sorry, Tommy, for you. You can go ahead.
Okay, I will do it. Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so we can take a look at the agenda. I think the first one was something that I added right now. So basically, we've merged this PR, which adds a new token client in the driver that will actually generate the service account tokens, which I think today the providers are doing that for workload identity or like the federation scenarios, right? So I think Vault is doing it and GCP is doing it, and then we're going to be adding it to Azure. So I thought, let's just do this in a backward compatible way in the driver. So what this change does is anything 121 above, basically it will generate the token and then it will add it in the same format that Kubelet adds the service account tokens. And then it also reuses the API field that is available in the CSI driver. So CSI driver has this token request where you can specify the audience and the expiration seconds. So we're just reusing that. If Kubelet doesn't give it as part of the mount request, we will generate it in the driver and then send it to the providers. And then now we're also doing this for rotation as well. So which means we've covered the token scenarios and everything in the driver. And then providers can stop generating the token on their own. And one good thing is we were able to reuse the Kubelet token generation package, which takes care of caching. So we are actually not generating a token every 10 minutes or periodically. Rather, we're just looking up cache. If it's expired, then we regenerate it. And then we also clean it up from cache when the pod goes away. So I think one way providers can leverage this, like if they're already generating token, is check if the annotation exists, the CA token, SA tokens annotation in the attribute. If it does not, then basically generate it so that like you are also backward compatible. But if the tokens already exist in the attributes you're getting, then you can just skip it. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. In the attribute, it's going to be csi.storage.kubernetes.io/service account.tokens. And then there will be a way to configure the audiences and expiration seconds using Helm. So basically that will translate to something like this, and then we will use that for generation.
What are the scenarios in which there'd be multiple? The plural makes me think it might. Is it an array of tokens potentially?
Yeah, I mean, if for some reason the provider wants tokens with multiple audiences, like targeted one for Vault and then like for GCP, like let's say they're running two providers, then it's just an array here. So they give audience GCP and then they also give audience Vault. And then the tokens will have both of it. When you unmarshal it, you will just have a map for each audience.
Got it. That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, so that is merged. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, so this requires the audience parameter to be set in the CSI driver YAML. I think was the last thing you said.
Mm-hmm.
Did you cover permissions yet? I think there's additional permissions that the driver needs, right?
Right. So yeah, in terms of permissions, there are two additional permissions, right? One is because we're following the same kubelet path. One is we want to get the CSI driver and see what all audiences are configured in it. So this is enabled by default because it's not very high level permissions. It's only get, list, and watch. And then also we are only doing it for our driver name, nothing more. But the second permission is basically the service account create. service account token create and delete the create. So this, at least for Helm, we are putting it behind the check where if the user configures token request, only then we take that permission. And then if they're going to install with the deploy.yaml, then again, we're just going to tell them that, hey, if you're using the driver for token generation, then install this role. But if you're not, then just skip it. So we're following the same format that we've been doing today for sync secrets or rotation and all those. So it's all separate YAMLs, and only if they want to, they install it.
And then I think the thing we discussed in the PR was that, like, in the future we can actually remove that permission once required to republish is supported in all supported versions, right?
Right. Yeah, so like right now for 1.1 it's this, and then I think the plan for 1.2 is we switch to requires republish for rotation because 120 is going to be end of life soon, and requires republish is a feature where kubelet will periodically retry the mount, right? And basically it'll give us the token in every call, which means we don't have to do all this custom rotation logic and all that in our code. So we were thinking in 1.2 we can introduce it, and I think that aligns with the timeline when 120 goes end of life. So we can say 1.2 works well with 121 plus Kubernetes version, because that's already the default right now. And if things go well and if we get good feedback from users or no issues, then we can actually graduate rotation to GA in 1.3 release, like as a feature. And yes, as Tommy said, we can actually get rid of quite a few permissions that we need today. Like we don't even need like some of the secret, actually secret get maybe yes, but we can get rid of the service account create and like some of the other permissions that rotation needs.
And one more thing is, like, we have done this change with backward compatibility in mind, and so we are going to keep that as is, right? I mean, we are not going to remove it, correct?
Yeah, the token client, we don't have to remove it, so we can keep it for a while. Like it'll generate the token for older versions where it's not there. But with requires republish, if we say the driver only works with 121, like if we have, I mean, we have to say that, right? Because if rotation has to work, we have to tell that it works at a certain version. So at that point, we don't need any of this like big changes. Like everything will just be handled by kubelet, and all we have to do is do the mount request again and again. That's it.
Right. Actually, my point was, like, I mean, we're probably not going to cut, let's say 2.0, right? So for the semantic aspect of it, we should always maintain this backward compatibility, right? I mean, we are not going to deprecate this down the line. I mean, this backward compatibility is what I'm trying to say.
At some point, if we switch to requires republish, we have to say which minimum Kubernetes version it supports. Like, I mean, we are not changing anything in the user-facing API, but the minimum version required to run this particular will be dependent on the feature. And only in 121, it's enabled by default.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I think
yeah.
I was going to just say that I think like old versions of providers should continue to work with this because they just won't see it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then it'll mostly be used or like the rotation feature of the CSI driver isn't part of our like GA feature set. It's still either alpha or beta. And so that's why I think there can be some changes to implementation here. And we can add the harder requirement for requires to republish kind of just before we mark the rotation feature as GA. But
Yeah,
this
the
will
driver,
allow us.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the driver provider and everything will still continue to work. Like we are not breaking any of that contract. Cool. Any other questions on this one? Okay. The next one was removing hold Helm package. So we have an approval on this, but I just wanted to bring it up here. So we've renamed our branch from master to main. And then as part of that, we also moved all our charts to GitHub pages. So we've changed our Helm URL, and then we've put out a note which was there, I think, for like 5 months now. So I think it's finally time to clean up all the old packages that we have in the main branch. So I opened this PR, so we're deleting that. Also, when we moved everything to GitHub pages, we moved all the old packages there as well. So if someone is still using a really old version, and if it's still available there, but I just wanted to bring it up here so everyone's okay with it.
Just keep eye on issues.
Yeah, that's why I didn't merge it in the night, so I merged it in the morning.
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. Next one is file system permissions. Tommy, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we may have talked about this last time, but there's, I think, at least 2 issues currently that we were targeting for 1.1 or 1.2 about supporting just different file system permissions. And I wanted to bring it to the attention that I think the Azure provider has gone, like, I did some testing on the GCP provider. I haven't merged a PR, but it works with just if you set file permissions on the response to the driver, things work as expected. So since the providers have the map of like files from the secret provider class, I think the Azure provider has extended their provider specific YAML to support inputting file permissions. So like these are bugs in the driver. It is possible to solve them in the providers exclusively. And so I think our kind of implicit decision was, yeah, providers can return the permissions of the files that they want written. And so providers should, you know, like if they want to support non-default permissions, it's right now going to be a up to providers kind of to extend their YAML to support that, if that makes sense. Because yeah, I was going to close out these issues with that information, but wanted to kind of bring it up in this forum first.
One thing, just kind of suggestion, or I'm just putting it out here, like maybe so like the way the Azure provider doing right now is just in a secret provider class, it's just a map, right? So or I guess so we are just map. So we are just adding a different key. So for example, we have like a key name file permission, and we just gave it. So I'm just thinking like maybe we all provider can keep that key name same. I mean, we don't have to. I'm not sure if there are any implication of this, but just kind of suggestion if it's possible. So that way, maybe we can put a note in the driver as well, like the provider have implemented this particular key, or maybe we can just redirect to particular provider's implementation or something like that.
I don't. I'll take a look at that. Like at least on the GCP one, we use just a list of maps for files where we use the like key path for like where the file should go. Where I think in the Azure one is like object name. So like I think there's already some differences between the providers.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
No. Got it. Then probably it should be fine.
Yeah.
Got it. No
I think the future issue that may come up is like a way to override the default for all files. But I think we'll close out the existing issues and just let it be a a provider specific feature for now. That makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I think at some point, if users come back and say they want to just use a single permission across all, then I think we can look at extending it in the secret provider class. So like we can just make that as the default.
Yep.
Cool.
What
Any
does,
other?
do you have an example of like what the current config looks like for file permission? Because I feel like there is I'm a bit foggy because yeah, as you say, the vault provider it receives like a permission in the gRPC request and then just returns the same thing back in the response basically. But I can't remember how that permission from the driver actually gets set. Is it actually configurable from the driver at all, or is it just it does always default to 644?
It's a constant right now, just hard coded into the driver. So there's not a flag and it's not taken from the secret provider class. So I think
Right.
that'll probably be like a follow-on issue of like, hey, can that be configurable? But in terms of just supporting file permissions, it is possible for providers to do that. Like if you return a permission, it will be honored.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and I think yeah, agreed. It makes sense on the decision for it to be kind of provider specific for now, given the way the config's passed.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering, like, even if we have to implement the other scenario where we want to just override single permission for the all file, do we have to do that in secret provider class, or maybe we can just add a flag or something? I mean, flag would be easier, I guess,
So
without
flag
breaking
is
any
a
contracts.
driver level property, right? If they want to have individual for secret provider class, if there are 5 secrets in SPC1 and 5 secrets in SPC2, then they might want different permissions for those.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I think all of it has like the very similar thing, like same thing with rotation, right? Like rotation interval today is a driver level property, but if they want to do it at SPC level, we don't have it as an option. But we can start at the driver level. Like that's why I think what Tommy said, like we make it configurable first at the driver with the flag. And then if we get requests that they want to do it per secret provider class and not do it for each individual object, then we just introduce another feature.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and then the next one is just there's a bug about like where providers listen, like where the Unix socket that they listen in the file system is. Where currently it's under etc Kubernetes, and the issue was that var run something is a more semantically correct place for it. So there's one PR that just changes it, but I have a PR in draft to do it in a backwards compatible way where the driver will check multiple locations. And so hoping to get that done soon, but just as a warning, we may have an ask to providers about where they mount in the host file system their Unix socket. So I would, yeah, rather, I think that was like 2 meetings ago, we talked about this issue and talked about doing it in a backwards compatible way instead of doing like a hard cutover from like 1.2 to 1.3 or something. So started on that, but haven't finished it yet.
Sounds good. Okay. I think that's all we have in the agenda. I think, yeah, Tom had mentioned about like the other changes that were there, right? I think the last one, which was the migration, was the driver write secrets one. I think most of the providers now have defaulted to that. Like I think I saw Vault also published a 1.0, and then that's awesome. And then GCP also has a 1.0, and then Azure also has 1.0, where all of us are doing driver is writing the secret. So I think the only last one is AWS. I think they have a flag for it, but it's not yet enabled by default. And I know we have an issue to track that. But yeah, maybe we can see if when they plan to do it. Like I think we can open a GitHub issue and see if when they plan to do it, and then we can close out this one.
Yeah. I think maybe something we should also do is relook. Like, I think we want to get out the 1.1 out soon, but after that, relook at our provider implementation documentation. Since like in this meeting, we talked about a few things of like moving from, the var run file system permissions. We could probably, this could probably use an update.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anything else that anyone on the call wants to talk about? Cool. So yeah, I think for the 1.1, like we were thinking we'll cut an RC image first, and then like after a day or two, just test it and then make sure it looks good, and then publish the 1.1. So is that okay? Cool. Okay, if that's it, then I think we all get back at least 30 minutes.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'll add another action item. I don't know. Should we send out like a doodle poll? Like we've talked about changing the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think for most of us, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, good. Go for it.
Now I was going to say, like, would 9 a.m. be an appropriate time, like instead of 8 a.m. PST? Like, I think Tom, it might be a little later, right? Do you like this time better?
I'm easy. I don't mind catching up on recordings. I don't want it to be all scheduled around me. I think I actually have like a meeting clash. Like if it went an hour forward, but yeah, like I say, don't schedule it just around me.
So here is an interesting point. I mean, we'll I think probably start daylight saving in March again, and we are like almost mid-February. So I mean, one of the motivation behind that is since daylight saving ended in November, maybe should we rethink? But I'm not sure if we just take out this timing and then go into daylight saving, I guess. But yeah, again.
Okay, I will send out the doodle. Like I'll send it out this afternoon. Let's see what the consensus is. If it's still 8, I think that's fine too. But we can see like what time best works for all of us. Cool.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks all. See ya.